Just real quick for the recording here, Sherry asked a question during the break about should this icon change. This icon would have changed to the pumpkin if, I might as well just do it, doesn't take long. I close this project and then immediately open it back up again, because that simulator, that screen layout that you see there, only gets refreshed once now while it's doing this stuff. And now that you can't see it very well, but there's my pumpkin. When I run it, it doesn't show up in the emulator because for some reason my layout, my template is not transferring over here to this emulator. I don't know why that's happening. This should look much closer to this. It's like it's starting an initial version or something. I don't know why. Again, that's what I get for upgrading. I probably should have left it alone. So it would show here if this template, whatever template this is, included an image on the left. But we did see that if we go back to the main screen that this changed right away. One of the things that Harold mentioned to me during the break is if you click and hold this, then you've got to remove it from the desktop or uninstall it altogether. It's a quick way to uninstall programs. Don't know if you can do that from the program list and say, yep, I can put it on my desktop, or I can get information, or I can uninstall it just by dragging it around with my mouse. Do the same thing probably with your actual app. Now I got two of them. Go away. All right. Next thing I want to do is go to my actual device itself. And I'm going to get rid of Hello World because we're not going to use that. And I want to add an image view. Notice there's also an image button. If instead of having a button with a little square text on it, you want to have a picture like a green check mark or a red X, you can use image buttons. And once again, if you're using those, I would use that image resource and have the X appear in 5 different sizes for 5 different devices. But in this case, I want to use an image view to show how to put pictures on the screen themselves. So the image button, I think, is an extra credit somewhere down the line if you want to experiment with it. But here's an image view, so I'm just going to drag it. And I'm going to park it in the middle of the screen for right now. And not much to see. And for some reason, I don't get to see my properties over here. To go to View, Attributes. Is it collapsed? There. It's my component tree. So here's a bunch of attributes. The 2 that are most important, like anything else, you get to them by double clicking. So here's my image, just a little blue square. I'm going to double click it. The 2 most important features are its source and its ID. I'm going to change its ID while we're here. I'm going to call it IV for image view and just sample for right now. Normally you would give it an appropriate name. The source of this picture has to come from the resources. Now, I have not brought any of these resources in, though we could use these mipmap images that we have with the icon launcher with the pumpkin face in there. We could use those, but why would you want to put that on your screen? Normally you don't. You want images from some other source. So then the next question is, on my desktop, I have all these images that I downloaded. I have my Voker image and I have my Halloween image. I believe this Voker image is going to be a problem because it's got a capital V. Let's find out. In order to get this into my project, in the old days, I used to be able to drag it. Uh-oh. Son of a gun. Did it work? Doesn't look like it. I thought it was working there for a minute because in Windows I get this little red X said, no, you can't drop it here. In Eclipse, I used to be able to drop it, and that was it. Just drag it in there, and it would automatically put it in your project. Doesn't work quite that easy, but it's almost as easy here. We need to, and let me try this one because it could be the capital V that was causing the trouble. No. Okay. So to move these in there, you right-click it, and copy it to the clipboard. Then you come over to the Drawable folder or the MipMap folder or wherever you want to put it. I recommend Drawable. Right click and paste it. What do you want to call it? Notice here, I wonder if it's going to let me do that with a capital V. Maybe they changed the rules and said, why do they have to be lowercase? And let me do it. So while we're at it, let's do the pumpkin. Right click, copy to the clipboard. Right click, Drawable, and paste. And it's a copy. It is not linked to these, so I can now delete Voker from the desktop and the pumpkin from the, and the pumpkin I don't really want, so I'm going to delete that one. I want the Halloween one instead. Okay, so now those are in there. Now that they are part of my project, so normally you would do this first before you put the image view on the screen, because now my image view is just sitting there, it doesn't have any image in it, and I couldn't pick one really because I didn't have anything in my Drawable folder. So once again, I'm going to double click this. The second property that I want to set is its source property. It's not image, it's not picture like it would be in Visual Studio. It's source, and it's abbreviated SRC. Later on when we write code, that might make a difference. A little hard to see, but next to the source dialog box is a browse button. Click it. And you can say, I want one of the colors. No, collapse that. Here's my Drawable folder, and here's my pictures. If I collapse that, I've got other IDs that I can choose from. If I collapse that, I've got the MipMap. So if I had dropped it in the MipMap, I can pull it from there. If you put it in the MipMap, you really ought to have 5 different sizes of this thing for 5 different devices. And what the sizes are, I don't have a whole lot of advice for you there. So my picture that I want, I'm going to grab Voker, is in the Drawable folder. And I think the reason Voker is, I'm trying to figure out why Voker is at the top. I think it's because it's got a capital V. And these are sorted by ASCII character codes, right? Lowercase letters come later. So that's interesting. If this works with capital V's, my advice to you is going to be name all of your resources that you're putting in here, starting with a capital letter, because they'll show up at the top of the list. I was scrolling, imagine my little 11-inch surface, and I'm scrolling through this, and the font size is so big I can barely see it. And mine are always at the bottom. I want that one. Go. And there I am. Not too hard. The big kick is to make sure you copy and paste into the Drawable folder. I hate when that happens. Sometimes I run it. Oh, it still hasn't asked me where I want to run it. V is not a valid file-based resource character name. Darn. And why did it let me put it in there? Let's see if I can rename it here. It's often called refactor. There it is. Rename. A little v. Refactor, and hopefully it'll change it everywhere so that it is still sitting. And nope, no, it's gone. So I can bring it back again, double click. Little v. How come you're not showing? Well, that's rude. There's Drawable again, and now Evoker should be at the bottom somewhere. It doesn't want to bring that picture in. Okay. Deleted it. If you're having the same problem, I deleted it. I'm going to bring in a new image view and see if I can solve the problem that way. Huh. Here's my image view. Wrap content, image view, center, Drawable over. Wow. It all looks good. What happens if I run it? Okay. Again, because that simulator can't seem to get caught up. So it works fine here, but my simulator, at least in design view, isn't showing it. So what Karen said is she once again did a file close, which makes no sense, and then opened it back up again. And now it's there. Now again, I have a slight advantage, though some of you are getting pretty good at it as well, at looking at the text and saying, yeah, that's what I wanted. I wanted wrap content. I haven't changed its name yet. I can change it here, or I can change it back out here. But it was hard to change. No, it wouldn't have been too bad. In design views, double click it. You can change its name here, or you can change it in the text, or you can change it over here. Excuse me. You can change it in 3 different places. It doesn't matter where. IV sample. Now, a couple of properties that I was messing around with that are also in my notes. The first one is the auto view bounds. If you check that property, it will automatically prevent you from stretching and shrinking this and distorting it. I can stretch and shrink it and move it to some extent here. It's not letting me make it bigger. We can adjust that a little bit later. But it will not distort it by setting the auto view bounds. And the other one I was changing is way down at the bottom is the scale type, and it says matrix, and that's not what it's supposed to look like with matrix. Could be this one's just too small. Let's change the image and bring in that Halloween image. I think this picture is too small. That's why none of this other stuff is changing on me here. Let's change the picture. So I'm going to double click it again. And I'm going to bring in Halloween this time. So they're always under Drawable because that's where they are hiding. There it is. Okay, there it is. And my source is good. If I turn this off, can I now resize it? Do weird things to it? No, still not letting me resize it. I got to figure that part out. Once you get these images in, getting them to resize is a bit of a challenge. I think the reason it's not resizing is because I have wrap content. If I set the height at 300 dp. But notice because of my auto content, and I turn that off, here's my height. Auto adjust is off. It might have distorted a little bit if I click it. It didn't change too much. Now I have some room here. But if I go back down to the scale type and use matrix, notice what happened. I see the upper corner, but it's real confusing if you do fit start. Notice it's shifted to the left a little bit. There's some extra space over here. There's fit center. Now it's shifted it over. Center crop. Makes it fit the best it can. And shifts it around. So in this case, because I had the auto adjust, it was not distorting my picture. So since I had to shrink it, do I want it centered, left or right? Notice the fit XY makes it stretch. Personally, I like the way it was when it was unset. So the scale type is there. Going back to my notes, used to be here someplace. There is a resource on the web that tries to explain this scale type. And one of the first, and this is a fairly old resource. It's still using some of the old ones. But here, I can tell it's old because I see fill parent. Fill parent is the old term for match parent. It's now called match parent. So when you see a fill parent, it lets you know the resource you're looking at is a little old. But with match parent here, it's filling it. And notice with matrix, you get the upper left corner of the picture. Fit XY makes it squeeze in there. However, that's the original picture squished. Here it makes it fit best it can in the top and so on. But notice all the, I don't know what overlay is, but all the weird stuff that's going on here and what happens with the pictures. Most of them look very similar. The only time I ever mess with it is when I need to. If my picture gets distorted, doesn't fit, I want to shrink it, then I mess with it. So speaking of messing with it, I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to change the height again and shrink it even more, make it 200, and watch what happens. Just keeps adjusting the picture to make it fit, but it's centered. Can I shrink its width? Probably not, because it's currently set to fit width. But now that picture is in here. But remember before when I was talking about how this is sized to fit. This picture is obviously too big. One of the things I like about scale mode matrix, scale type matrix, is it shows me the actual size. That's a little big for this device. Now, if I was planning on running this on a 7-inch tablet or a 10-inch tablet, I should probably test it on that to see how the picture looks there. But if you don't set anything, it'll adjust, and what I do know is that this will continue to get wider, even on bigger devices, but it's not getting any higher. And since it's not getting any higher, it really is not going to change much in the other pictures, on the other devices. It's always 300 pixels wide. So it adjusts. My advice is try to get the picture approximately the right size for your screen. How do you know what the screen resolution is? Well, I think it lies to me, honestly. If you go into the emulator, remember this button up here, it's the Avd Manager, that's the emulator manager. This tells me I have a resolution of 1080 wide by 10920 across. That picture I downloaded was not that wide.
That's the same size as these screens.
Oh, really?
Yeah, these are 1080 by 1920. I don't think your phone is that
No, I don't think my phone's that big. And I actually had an app once upon a time that I wrote that measured, that returned the screen size, just so I could see what it was. So I guess that.
That based on the fact that your monitor is 1080.
Yeah, it's probably what it's doing, but it's not telling me how wide it is. This is 1,000 dots per inch. No, even that's not right. So I'm not getting a lot of help here. There's probably another way. I'll have to dig that up again someplace. Okay. So that's how you put them on there. But what if I want to change them? I'm going to show you your homework assignment here in a little while. What if I want to change this dynamically while the program is running? So let's go to the main activity. And notice I got a few extra pieces of junk in here now in onCreate, thanks to my new improved version of Android Studio. Got a floating action bar. I wonder if I comment those out. I think I tried this and it didn't cause too much trouble. Any red squiggles? No. All right, so what I want to do is the same thing I've done before, and that's going to be to create a method called switchImage. And tuck that in underneath here, a private void switchImage method. If we're going to switch the image, the first thing we absolutely need is a pointer to that image. Just like when you were messing with text boxes and trying to read them, when you were messing with buttons and try to handle their odd click, you have to have a pointer to the object. My object is an ImageView. I'll call it IV for short. And that's going to be a find by ID, just exactly the same way, except this time I'm finding an image view. And then the find by ID using the r.id.id sample. Nothing different there. Same thing you've been doing with text views and buttons and edit texts and whatever else you've been playing with. That's the same, except now we're pointing to an image view. Now I want to change it. I want to change the image's view by setting something. And I think it was the image resource, if I remember right. It's in my notes. Image resource. There it is. I have a resource, so I'm going to go get this image from the resources. And if it's not in the resources, I can't get it. There are ways to go get it from other places, but let's not go there. Which picture do I want now? I want the R dot, and it's not in the, this is not an ID. Remember, we didn't assign an ID to these. We put them in the Drawable folder. And in the Drawable folder, there are 2 images that I can steal. So in the set image resource, you simply designate which one of your pictures you want. Now, what I haven't played with yet myself is what if it's in the mipmap? I think you put mipmap here. I'm pretty sure. Let me see what happens if I back up. Can I say mipmap? Yep. Dot IC launcher. There it is. So if you do have a multi-version picture, you can pull it out of the mipmap. So that's what mipmap is for. It's relatively new. It allows you to create multiple size images to get used in different resolutions. And if I remember right, when I was looking at my emulator, the emulator said my resolution was XX HDPI. Not triple, but double. So whatever picture I put in here is the one that it would use. You want to experiment with that sometime. I think I did this a couple of years ago. Is I set the launcher for the HDPI, just that one. I set it to the number 1, just a picture of a ball with a number 1 in it. And this one to 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that's what told me what resolution I had. It always picked the appropriate one based on the resolution of the device. But I don't want mipmaps. I'm back to drawables, and for our purposes, you can put all your pictures in Drawable. And now, when I'm in my design view, did I put that one in? Oh, I wanted to resize it. I'm going to change that text. I'm sorry. I'm going to put it back to Volker. So now again, in design view, it's still my Halloween picture, but when I run, when the image gets created, it's me again. I think that's the one that I just had. I better double check. This is the way I know that it's restarted the program, is I close the other one just by hitting the square, or the circle, excuse me. Here it comes. Okay. But notice the alignment of that picture. Maybe that's not what I want. Maybe I want it centered. Because my width is still matched the source or match the content, wrap content. If I want this centered, I'm going to have to manipulate these settings. That's something I have to experiment with myself a little bit. I didn't show you on that website, but the paragraph right above all the scale type, the first thing he said is, I can't figure this stuff out, but here's the results. And which one you want to use is sometimes difficult to pick out. It doesn't look like there's a couple of new options here, and there's a couple that went away. But this center crop doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because okay, it's the width is matching the screen width. Okay. If I took that out, I think it would take the original picture and make it fit the best it could and crop everything else out. And if I run that now, what happens to the Volcker picture? Well, the Volcker picture is significantly smaller, so I don't think it's going to be terribly affected by it. Doesn't look like it's been affected by it at all. One other piece of advice, if you're doing multiple pictures like you're going to have to for your homework assignment, make them all the same size. That way, whenever you put one in here as a starter, they'll all behave the same way. This one is cropped. How come this one isn't? Because it's smaller. It fits. If you make all your pictures the same size, you'll have to experiment to figure out what size it is. But if you make all your pictures the same size, then they should all at least behave the same way. So that this would be cropped, the top of my head would be gone. But this happens to fit inside there, so I don't have that issue. So those are the two pieces that you need to do the first part of Lab 5. So let's go take a look at that. And again, all the stuff, this is the code that we just wrote, all in my notes. Debugging is yellow, that means I haven't updated it yet. That'll be for next time. Going down to the labs, Lab 5 is now posted, at least part 1 is. Part 1, what I want you to do is change the app icon, no big deal, and then download between 3 and 6 pictures. Do yourself a favor for later, make it 6. If you get behind and you can't get to 6, 3 pictures and 6 pictures really doesn't change the code much. Create a new project, and again, I recommend these pictures all be the same size. This instruction here is a little bit premature. How do we know what 1/3 of your Android device is? I'm going to see if I can find that app that I wrote in the past that tells me the resolution of my screen, pixel by pixel. And that might help. Get rid of the hello world. Import some pictures, we just did that. Change the icon. Add the image view, give it an ID, set its source to any one of the images that you want. Put it somewhere near the top of the screen like I just did, so it takes up about 1/3 or 1/2 of the height of the screen. The reason it's 1/2 is in part 2 you're going to put text underneath it. But that's in part 2. Run your app, make sure the picture shows up. Then, here's something I haven't shown you how to do, but you should be able to extrapolate, or that's not the right word. What am I looking for here? Interpolate? Is that the right? I'm looking at my English major over there. What's the word I'm looking for? Take what you learned before and apply it to this. Whenever I click on a picture, well, how do you deal with picture clicks? On click. Whenever I click on a picture, show me the next one. And the next one. What's the next one? That's up to you. Show them in whatever order you want. When you get to the last one, wrap around to the first. So the user goes tick, 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 and goes to the pictures and just keeps it right on and going, wraps around and just shows you all these pictures. So it's kind of like an image viewer. except a limited set of pictures that you're putting in the app to start with. But this will give you something to work on. Shouldn't be anywhere near as difficult as Lab 3. Submit that. This part 1 is not worth 20 points. The whole thing is. I'm guessing this is in the 5-point range. It'll be due a week from Friday because this Friday your Lab 3 is due. If you're having trouble with Lab 3 and you're frustrated, maybe you work on this. This should be relatively simple. At least get the pictures showing up. And then figure out how to cycle through them. I'll give you a hint on the easy way, though conceptually it's a little more difficult, but the easy way is to create an array of pictures and walk through those. That's the easy way. There are a number of ways to solve the problem. I don't care how you solve it. But if you implement an array list of pictures here, that can make life a little easier. Okay, rest of the time is lab for you to work on Lab 3 or this or whatever you wish.